Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. Nigeria has ranked 145 out of 180 countries and scored 25 out of 100 points in the current Transparency International TI Corruption Perception Index. According to PwC Nigeria, corruption will cost the country up to 37% of its GDP by 2030, meaning it will cost an average person in Nigeria nearly $2,000 if not dealt with all sincerity or purpose. Despite efforts by previous administrations to tackle this monster, including the setting up of anti-graft agencies, EFCC and ICPC by the Obasanjo administration, implementation of TSA, IPPIS, and whistleblower policy of the Buhari government, corruption in public and private sectors remain endemic. It was former President Muhammadu Buhari who once said, "If we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria." With the change of governance button in 2023, expectations were high. The new government of President Bola Tinubu will sustain and even up the game in the fight against Nigeria's #1 public enemy, corruption. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with a public affairs analyst to assess the President Bola Tinubu handling of the anti-graft war. Comrade Iliyasu Gadu, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and happy Salah in advance.
Thank you so much. And before we commence the conversation, here are some tidbits. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is probing 50 bank accounts as it recovered 30 billion naira in the alleged scandals in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. The EFCC chairman, Ola Olukoyede, who disclosed this in an interview published in the March edition of EFCC Alert, an in-house magazine of the anti-graft agency, also called for special courts for corruption cases. Olukoyede in the publication said the recovered fund was in the federal government's coffers. The EFCC is currently investigating alleged scandals in the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry involving the suspended Minister Betta Edu, her predecessor Sadia Umar Farouk, and Mrs. Halima Shehu, the National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program, an agency under the Humanitarian Ministry. And elsewhere, gun-wielding non-state actors have killed a total of 154 military and police officers and men in the last 1 year. Findings show that between March 2023 and March 2024, 90 policemen were killed, while 64 military personnel also lost their lives to the activities of outlaws. Meanwhile, another set of casualties have been recorded in Mariga local government area of Niger State, as bandits again killed 30 members of a volunteer security outfit called Nsake. Now we'll take a short break, and when we return, our conversation commences. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us and still having in the studio Comrade Iliyasu Gadu. Yeah, before we commence, look at the subject of discussion. You've heard the tidbits I just read. Two of them. One has to do with the subject matter we're discussing, that is corruption. The scandals in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. 30 billion naira was said to have been recovered, and around 50 bank accounts are also subjected to investigation. When you hear these mind-boggling revelations and discoveries, what first comes to your mind, especially as it relates to this ministry, which is very central to addressing poverty and, unemployment and social issues in the country?
Well, three things come to my mind when hearing about the scandals, corruption scandals in that ministry. First, it's ironic because it's the ministry that is charged with alleviate poverty in the country, and that poverty comes as a result of a number of issues. On top of it is corruption. People making away with funds for the very same, alleviation purposes that the government has set aside to alleviate those issues. So it's ironic that the ministry that's supposed to give succor is the ministry that is actually involved in taking away the succor from people through corrupt practices at the very top of the ministry. The second thing is that it's no longer numbing really for Nigerians to hear about corruption, because it has become commonplace as anything you can think of. Nowadays, in fact, people are talking about corruption not in terms of hundreds of millions of naira.
It's running to trillions now.
It's running to trillions now. So
some countries' budget.
Yeah. So in that respect, it's no longer numbing. It's not mind-boggling, as you said. It's no longer mind-boggling, because you hear of a bank, a former CBN. In fact, nobody has been able to put a hand on how much is been pilfered in that. And thirdly, I would just refer to the French saying: the more something changes, the more it stays the same. That is to say, you've just reeled out figures and actions taken by previous administrations to address corruption in the country, but it stays the same. In fact, it goes even beyond what we know. So, it's a monster, a Frankenstein monster, corruption, and it has ended up, becoming a danger to the country's existential danger, as a matter of fact, to the country's governance system.
Can we establish a nexus between that mind-boggling corruption, if you like, and the current state of the country? Here we are with a country where billions of naira are being stolen. Citizens are living hand to mouth. Hunger is in the land. People are dying, trying to access palliatives, trying to survive. And there's billions of naira have been taken away by people who are entrusted with power.
Well, that's the incongruity of the system we operate, of the governance system of the society we operate. And talking about eliminating corruption, for me, and for most Nigerians, it's actually glib talk, because you have to address it from the root cause. Corruption comes as a result of deprivation. Now, if you have a society that has no safety nets, safety provisions for people, it has a society that does not provide employment opportunities, that provides services for people, that gives the individual the sense to believe that he is reckoned with by the state, then of course people will take to the nearest solution that they have, especially if they have power in their hands to be able to affect their own conditions. If for instance, we do not have a social system that addresses a number of issues that affects the individual. We do not have health system, we do not have educational system, we do not have all the necessary safeguards, the props that makes a person believe that the society takes care of him. So when he has an opportunity, to take away from the state, he takes away from the state, because this to him represents the amount of money that will be needed to take care of those things. And it's for everybody. It's no longer a matter of moral suasion. It's a matter of, look, I need to do this first before I can do any other thing. And if I have opportunity, I'll do it. And everybody out there, there's a saying that everybody out there is waiting for an opportunity to also get his hands on the till.
That's the rot, the level of the rot we find ourselves in. But yes, coming back to, looking at the trajectory, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, and the fact that, coincidentally, the 3 women that have been investigated, leaders of this, that have handled the affairs of this ministry happen to be women. Was it a coincidence?
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. Although the reasoning behind the appointment of formation of the ministry and the appointment of the first minister might be, I'm not so sure about that, but might be because it is felt that this is a humanitarian mission or a humanitarian ministry, and
women by nature have compassion.
Are compassionate, and they may be able to approach the matter. And most of the vulnerable people actually are women in the country, because they take care of the households. They are the ones. Increasingly, women are taking care of a number of issues that before has to do with men. And in any case, the very nature of women and women. It's about caring. It's about humanitarian issues like that. So perhaps maybe, and then of course looking at the areas worst affected by humanitarian crisis and all that, it's women.
They're vulnerable.
They're the most, among the most vulnerable. Even the United Nations provisions also looks at women in a special way, gender issues. So it's not, perhaps it's not a coincidence, I would believe, that a woman was, appointed to head the ministry. And also, it's also not also a coincidence that women are preponderant in the ministry in terms of running some of the programs. So, but then, of course, as it happens, also they have become the culprits in some of the...
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that. If women, 3 women were found, wanting or being found wanting in this, what does this speak, in terms of what women can do? I mean, some say, just like you establish, you give a woman some level of trust, but 3 women appear to have abused this trust. Sadia Umar Farouk, Beta Edu, Alima, and all of that.
Shafi, you are trying to roll me into a gender
no, I wouldn't want to
battle with women.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the women themselves say it, that look, what a woman can do, what a man can do, a woman can do,
including
so maybe this is
including the negatives.
Yeah, of course. So women generally are known to be caring, to be humanitarian in nature, because that's the way God, created them, and it's something to be proud of. Really, we are all the products of we women. They nurture, all that. Right. But then in our world today, women are also coming into the world of men, and sometimes the latecomers really end up being better than the old timers. As I said, the JJC, the Johnny Just Come, but it's unfortunate. Really, it's unfortunate because it's a responsibility given to them by virtue of their gender to some extent, and then they have ended it in betraying that trust. It's not one woman,
even though investigation is still ongoing.
Though investigations are still going on.
Yes,
but then we have to make a comment on it, because really people will start thinking about why should women be involved in this sort of things?
That's right. Okay, before we leave this matter to the next tidbit, beyond just recovery, 30 billion naira was said to have been recovered, and 50 bank accounts are under investigation. Suspension, the president has suspended the minister, has also suspended the head of the agency, that is Halima Shehu. But beyond all of this, Nigerians were expecting, a more severe perhaps sanctions, or better still, prosecution if necessary. Do you see, government taking such measure?
Well, the FCC boss in the statement was alluded to have said, these are weighty allegations, and they needed to take time because they don't have much personnel to follow up these allegations. They need to take a lot of time to investigate what's happening. So that's why it's taking too long, and it's asked for patience. Yeah, but then I think it's also something that should be said, that it's taking too inordinately long about it, because the facts have been proven. And it shouldn't take him too long to prosecute the lady. She could say, take her to court and then continue with the investigations, because it's not necessarily going to be a one-day affair or a short-term affair. Okay. But let's take her to court, and then let's, by virtue of the court processes, get to know, subpoena some of the witnesses, and then get to know who and who was involved, because such a sum, a huge sum, cannot...
We've gone beyond just...
So, but then trying to, delay the matter unnecessarily, raise suspicions that, look, it's the usual Nigerian way of doing things. You want to keep her away, keep the matter under the radar, so that eventually when people get tired, or when people forget about it, then you can just, issue a statement. And that within that time, of course, there could be a lot of,
other
developments, because I understand that the lady in question, that's the minister, Beta Edu, has been making overtures to very, very senior administrations, officials, because she felt that she was not alone in the matter, That's allegations.
That's right.
And that she may rope in many more people into the matter. You remember, this issue also involved the Minister of Interior Affairs. For allegedly, being one of the his company being one of the companies involved in the contracts. So
at some point, some people get also the chief of staff and all of that.
So the cycle is widening, and then to be able to sort of, stem the widening circle. Perhaps you say, okay, keep cool, calm down, we can just see how we can do, and then let the matter, you just get off the screen, and then we can do from there.
Okay, away from that now, 154 military and police officers killed in just 1 year by non-state actors. What that means perhaps within this administration, because it is gradually, completing a year, isn't it? Yes, in the last 12 months, 154 military and police personnel were killed. And this is a period we had a change in pattern also in respect to our security architecture, some rejigging of the architecture, some spendings in military hardware and all of that. Looking at the casualties and the commitment, being put by government, where are we headed to?
First of all, I would like to say, to the people who have lost their lives, I say, I send my condolences because they died in active service. They died to
protecting their country,
protecting you and I. And it's unfortunate that this is what a country should do to them for doing what they have done, for laying down their lives. And secondly, I would like to also say that the number is too high. These are people who lost their lives within a year. We are not in a war. In a war with external forces. We are in a war with ourselves. And these are people who are not fighting any war. They are there to protect you and I. They're there to protect citizens, as is their mandate. And I believe that the casualty rate is too high and unacceptable.
Can you imagine between March 2023 and March 2024, 90 policemen were killed?
Yeah. So I think it's something that we need to look at very, very seriously. The authorities, need to look at, because it serves as a disincentive for anybody to want to stand and defend their country. And for that matter, the guns that are killing you are coming from citizens, fellow citizens, whom you have gone to protect against threats to their lives and their livelihoods and their properties and their communities. So it's something we should be very, very, concerned about. And I'm not happy at the way the government is taking it. It's not just because somebody says agrees to lay his life for the country doesn't mean that his life will be wasted in that manner. It's unfortunate because if you do not have people joining the armed forces or joining the security forces to help defend the country against internal and external threats, then you are going to have a problem.
And in an attempt to address the gap or the deficit in terms of the boots on ground, take for instance, Vigilante or Ensakai, those that volunteer, to also join in the fight. 30 members of a volunteer security outfit were killed in Niger State, Mariga to be precise. What does this also tell us in terms of, citizens' engagement in addressing this existential issue?
And that also is another issue we have to look at, because, the security officers, the security operatives and the security institutions in this country, the government has always come out to say, look, it is not the job of the security forces or security enforcement agencies alone. People have to be involved. There should be citizen security, citizens' involvement. And these are vigilantes, which are people who are said, okay, volunteer to do the same thing, to help our society, to help our security forces to solve this problem. And they are also being killed. So it all engenders a situation of a future, disincentive really for people to come and say, look, I wouldn't want to wear the uniform. And much more, I would not even want to be a vigilante, because at the end of the day, I'll be wasted. And then the government that is supposed to come out and help and do all it can to take this fight to the bandits or to the kidnappers or to the non-state actors appears not to do anything. Even when it asks people, it urges people to come out and help
and support the
situation, security, because the vigilantes perform a very, very important.
Yeah, understanding the terrain.
Because they understand the terrain. They are part of
the.
So if, for instance, you deploy somebody from somewhere that is not as a security government licensed security officer, and he doesn't know the terrain, the vigilantes are supposed to pick up the slack.
That's right.
And they're the ones to do the job.
We've seen, what they've done in Borno, for instance, and Yobe and the rest of it,
Yes.
where substantially the result, if you like, or the achievements that were made were largely credited to them.
Exactly. And you, in every force, whatever, no matter how strong you are, you can have all the force, all the military hardware. If you do not have people on ground who will help you achieve your aims, your job is not well done, will not be well done. It will be just half done. But when you have vigilantes, people you are sure of, people you trust, people that can
even in terms of intelligence gathering.
Exactly. A number of the vigilantes that do all kinds of things, they are also in combat, they are also in situations of engagement with the non-state actors. They are very engaged with providing intelligence, providing logistics, providing help. So I'm providing even a number of issues that help the cause of the security forces.
How do we avoid, pushing the human factor now, pushing, allowing this personnel and all of that, in spite of the limited number, to be killed? Is there a need for us to have a review, a holistic review to the approach to addressing this insecurity? You're talking about boot on ground. Some felt that there is need also to inject some level of technology, beyond just pushing people to go and die, to go and confront this. There is need to adequately take advantage of, intelligence, technology to be able to.
Yes, I think, the nature of this crisis or this conflict is asymmetrical.
Yeah, not conventional.
It's not a conventional way where you engage with the enemy based on strength or based on assumed strength. These are people who are apparently well versed in studying the terrain. They know the terrain and they know when to strike and when not to strike. They know. So I don't believe that the full range of the application of warfare tactics or conflict strategies have been applied. I believe that either for one reason or the other, the security agencies have limited themselves to just a few a few of the tactics that they have, because as you rightly said, there are technological
measures that can be
applications that can be deployed to be able to resolve this. Lots of them, the wars these days are not just wars of engagement, gun to gun. They are wars of psychological. There are wars of technological, using gadgets like what do you call them, drones, using intelligence, using all
even
kinds
robotics
of things.
in some cases.
Even robotics. So these are things that they're also psychological issues. You could use even media, for instance. You could use media to go into these places, because you can now take to the hearts of these people and try to reach them and even try to provide situations whereby it's very difficult for them to get logistics and supplies within the area of operations.
That's right.
So these are the issues that they should. So what you need to do, the end result is to, if not eliminate the threat, but degrade the threat,
Right.
and ensure that those people are not in a position to launch attacks as regularly and as with impunity that they do.
That's right.
So, but I don't think in the war against the conflicts that we have in Nigeria, the full range have been applied in the theater of operations, really. Right. But I stand to be corrected, because I'm not a full security person. I just...
Right, okay. We have to now go into our main conversation, looking at Tinubu government and anti-corruption fight. Let me build a background here and then see your expectation. President Tinubu, came into office and the background of a lot of allegations, corruption allegations, and so on and so forth, right from when he was governor, in Lagos State. At 2011 or so, he was even, he had to go through trial, concerning his, the allegation around his asset declaration and all of that, with that background, because that substantially Nigerians were using it as a benchmark to see whether, he is somebody who would fight corruption to a standstill. What was your expectation on him, regarding the fight against corruption?
Not much. Skeptical.
Okay.
Why? Yeah, because he's surrounded by people who are corrupt. If he is not corrupt and he's surrounded by people who are corrupt, that's your answer for you. And that's what is happening in the administration. A lot of people who are his henchmen or who are around him, who are appointees by him, have one issue or the other to do with corruption, and the corruption agencies have their files as thick as this. So, and these are people who he is beholden to in terms of votes, in terms of getting things done, politically, economically, and the rest of them. So, in that situation, you cannot expect President Tinubu to fully mount the war against corruption.
Even with the parameters, with the apparatus he has, with the available, agencies and what have you. I mean, we have the EFCC, the ICPC. There are also policy, initiatives to deal with or to tackle corruption. You think even with that, the commitment perhaps was not there?
This is mere window dressing, because even his policies engender and bring about corruption. The policies he has been embarking on, the economic policies, engender corruption because it deprives people, it deprives people and encourages people who are in power to do a lot of things without necessarily, it's a kind of what they call a wink and a nod kind of situation. Okay, don't get caught, but if you get caught, you're on your own. And if it becomes very serious that you get caught and you are in a position to spill the beans, we'll do what we can, and then to manage it until such a time it doesn't become threatening to you and us.
Is it to say that there is a contradiction, between what the president was telling Nigerians when he is aspiring for this office? At some point, I heard him talking about fighting corruption in a different way, deploying strategies, mechanisms to avoid people getting even involved, or getting access to, proceeds of corruption and so on and so forth. He was looking at fighting corruption differently from what was done in the past, discouraging people from even going into corruption in the first place. Do you see that being applied?
They are just mere semantics. Mere semantics, mere just talk, glib talk, really. Because some of the people, as I repeat again, some of the people who were appointed into offices by him or who were encouraged to be appointed to office into him are people with known cases of corruption right now with them. Now, you shouldn't have allowed those people to be anywhere near any public office because in the first place, they are under investigation. In the second place, they are people allegedly tainted. So to get them to those places would mean that you are trying to help them to compromise the investigations. And then some weeks back, we got to hear that some governors, past and current, are being under the radar of the corruption agency. We just heard them on the papers. We didn't hear. Some of the governors, some of the officials appointed under his government are people to have known cases of corruption. It's there. I don't want to name names.
Yeah, even though some will say it is not just limited to his government. Previous administrations have also had to, grapple with some of those challenges.
But he did say he was going to fight corruption differently. If previous administrations did it in certain ways and it didn't bring about results, and he said to us, he promised to us, he was going to fight corruption in different way. We expected, although he didn't give details of how he was going to fight it differently from the others, but we expect that, okay, having said that, he was going to bring
in the public sector, for instance, he was talking about, the need to improve the welfare of the workforce, take care of some of the basic needs, housing and all of that. I think
we are still struggling with 30,000 naira. That is the basic minimum wage. Meanwhile, a bag of rice has gone for 70-something thousand naira. So how are you going to fight corruption in that?
So that alone has provided an enabler. It's an enabler, so to speak. Of course.
Talk is cheap, but the action is where is what is necessary. And if you really, really want to, tackle corruption, you must be seen to be doing things realistically. You must be matching words with actions. It's not just you are not on the campaign podium. You are talking about an issue that even agencies outside this country have said within the next years coming. Is going to constitute about 37% of our GDP,
which is
high.
Huge, quite huge.
That's I mean, imagine that your GDP is composed of 37% of it is composed of corrupt practices, corrupt activities, and corrupt distance. You are taking about 37% of what is coming to the country in terms of earnings in corruption.
And look at the costs. An average person by 2030 is expected to cost you and I $2,000.
So you and I will pay $2,000 at the rate that we're going to get this. So by that time, $2,000 is going to be how much? It's going to be more than millions. So every Nigerian will be committed to paying millions by virtue of corrupt practices. It's a very serious issue, and we better not stop playing politics and playing pranks with it. We need to get at it because it is one of the things that will define whether we as Nigerians will want to go forward or not.
Now, where are we getting it wrong? For instance, is it about the institution fighting corruption? Is it about the legal framework to, address issues of corruption? Or is it about the personal commitment, the political will to deal with it?
If it's about, institutions and what else? And the other things that you talked about.
Yes, the institutions, the framework.
The framework. We have a surfeit of these institutions and the frameworks. And if it's about waxing lyrical, we have so much. You can even get a popular Nigerian to talk about it. It's the talk of town. But what is lacking is political commitment and political will. And the realization that, look, this is really, really affecting our country. Because if corruption now becomes entrenched, embedded as a way of life, then goodbye to development in this country. Because everybody that has opportunity to get to government or one way or the other would now think about how you be corrupt.
Yeah, like we've seen now.
Yes.
A couple of months into government, 30 billion naira and all of that.
Exactly. In fact, it's more than that. It's about 40-something billion naira. And then, they have been able to recover 30 billion naira. We need to know the details, by the way, of how that money was discovered and how it's going to be, utilized and things like that.
Even though some will say there was some attempt, to provide some level of deterrence, or to checkmate the excesses of those alleged to have been involved in corruption, like the president has done. If some said he need to be given that credit. If it were the previous administration, perhaps the minister would still remain and then investigation going on and all of it. But the fact that he suspended the minister, and all that those that are involved, also show some level of leadership.
To some extent we can admit and give him credit for taking those actions. But then don't forget, it was as a result of the public uproar. It became too much. The uproar became too much. That he just had to, because the level of the corruption was huge, and the circumstances of the corruption was huge. First, it started with a lady in the ministry, then it led to one or two things happening at the Minister of Finance or Accountant General's office, then that and that, and then it became too, and the lady in question, that's the minister, was almost Beta Edu, was almost like the star lady, the signature lady of the administration, the face of the administration. So, and then of course it was widening. Investigations people were taking it upon themselves to investigate further what was happening, and then it was getting dangerously close to even the presidency. So they now had to do something.
So it wasn't. It was just a decision that has to be taken.
Yeah, it had to be taken, because if it didn't, new revelations were coming out, and it became dangerous. So yes, it's true, the president took a step, a commendable one, but then we have to look at citizens' advocacy on this matter. And that is why we're asking for more citizen advocacy on a number of the issues that are happening within this administration. So as to be able to have that vigilance and to maintain the thrust of democracy in the country.
Just as you give him credit, for taking that decision, and in another breath, the scandal, the alleged, budget padding scandal of the National Assembly also came to light, and Nigerians were also surprised. A number of Nigerians were surprised at how the presidency, the executive arm of government, came all out, to support, so to speak, and even justify to some extent what was done by the lawmakers, the budget padding to the tune of 3.7 trillion out there about. The Minister of Budget and National Planning came out to say that, it is not an issue. It is something that has been happening. They haven't broken any law and all of that. And then even the presidency came out to also say that, okay, those who are alleging that XYZ has been done, Nigerians should change it, didn't understand the mathematics also. So what do you make of what happened during that?
No, first of all, the Minister of Budget and Planning is, in fact, one of the people in the radar of the corruption fight. I mean, he has a long-standing issue of of the Abacha loot and all that. It's hanging on his head. He still has not wriggled out of it. So if he made that statement, I won't be surprised, because was it not stem from the fact that he was a former lawmaker and he understands budgeting processes and how it is done at the National Assembly? Yeah, but then it's like an in-your-face kind of statement he made, because we are talking about an allegation by a senator, and the senator wasn't even allowed to ventilate, to open up the even though he was given the opportunity to do that. Yeah, but before then he was hounded, and even the Senate ought to have taken it upon itself to say, look, we cannot allow these allegations against us to go under the carpet, for the sake of integrity, for the sake of what we're doing as a lawmaking body, as somebody, as a body involved in the governance process, very, very much involved. We need to come out with these allegations because they are huge. You're talking about 3 trillion. And in fact, the nature of the accusation is not just about the figures, but it's just about the opaque nature of the application of the figures. Yeah. You pack 3 trillion naira in an opaque way, where it is only accessible to the ranking members of the Senate. And also along the line, revelations came out that some monies were distributed to some ranking senators, and some got it, some did not get it. Come on. And then somebody is telling you that, people should be interested. This is our money, your money and my money. And then the presidency is talking about semantics. That's nonsense. They should be able to come out and say, look, this and this and this and this is it. If you say this is allocated to this as first line charges, let us know how much was allocated and for what reasons, and what is the drawdown on it. Now, neither the National Assembly nor the presidency took it upon themselves to subject this allegation, if you like, or revelation to further scrutiny. The National Assembly, the Senate President in particular, and all the principal officers do not see it as a priority to come out clean, just like you said. And some civil society organizations have even taken it further to give the National Assembly an ultimatum, to subject this matter to EFCC and ICPC investigation. But till today, we are talking about fighting corruption. This is a clear case by virtue of the dimension of the corruption allegation, by virtue of the involvement of both the executive and the national and the executive and National Assembly. This is something that ought, for the sake of integrity, even as a window dressing opportunity, to say, look, we're going to get into this, rather than dismiss it offhandedly in a contemptuous manner. That this has become the nature of this administration, unfortunately. It treats Nigerians with contempt and disdain. It feels that certain things must not be brought to the same people who, in their former lives, were also asking for government to come out clean on such issues, and now, for instance, the Senate leader pay me by me.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that nonsense about ethnicizing and regionalizing the issue?
To give it the
doing a filibustering
coloration,
about whether because the Senate was from the South.
Yeah.
What has that got to do with the amount of money allegedly involved in that? This is what
even the fresh revelation. Even the fresh revelation. At the point they were trying to, shut up, if you like, Nengi, the other guy, the other senator now
from
came
the
up
Cross
with
River,
the 500 million naira, allocation to principal officers, so to speak. I mean, yes, the ranking senators and so on. So another one came up. It shows that it's a multi-layered kind of...
This is what we're saying, and that it should not, the Senate as a body, as an institution of government, in fact, the most important arm of government in the presidential system, because they are the ones that make the laws, they are the ones that do oversight, they are the ones that are closest to the people, should not have allowed this to go without investigation, even for their sake, even as a window dressing. They didn't allow that to go. Instead, they hid behind some nebulous, rules. And then the Senate leader, his role was even the most disgraceful of all, because he was trying to introduce issues that were not related to what was on ground.
Because bottom line is about the money that is being invested.
The money that he's talking about is going to affect Nigerians, whether they are from Ekiti, where he comes from, or whether that's from Taraba, where I come from, or from Kaduna, where you come from. It's going to affect all of us. So we need to know about it. We didn't elect them to go and sit and then ride roughshod over serious allegation made by one of them. And that is where we expect the government to come out and say, look, it's not just going after one or two people against corruption, but going after
an institution.
Let us know.
Which is very central.
It's very, very central to our existence as a country and as a people. And if allegations of this nature come out, we must lay it to rest by investigations. The Senate did not bath itself in glory by the manner it
handled the
matter. Because what it proved to Nigerians is that yes, there is sleaze in the Senate, there is corruption in the Senate, and that when it comes out, they are not going to investigate. They are going to hide it over, and that this also tallies with the way they handle probes and all that. At the end of the day, nothing comes out of it.
Now, looking at the role of the anti-graft agencies. The chairman of the EFCC, the current chairman, just while making those revelations, also talk about the need to have special courts, for corruption cases. Perhaps looking at the framework, if you like, the legal framework, and how these corruption-related cases linger for a very long time as a result of the inadequacies also within the legal system. There is need for a special courts to dispense with some of these challenges. Do you subscribe to that?
I think it's just all talk. Because at the end of the day, if we do not deal with corruption, how are we sure that even the special courts will be immune from corruption? Because you could set up special courts, yes, to be able to solve some of these issues. If you think the normal courts are a cog in the wheel, or because the way the normal courts run, they're running in a way that impede the swift dispensation of justice. But what we are saying is that, are you going to set up those special courts from mass? They are going to be from among you are going to appoint them from among the same judiciary that has been that has been accused of corruption. So it's not a matter of special courts, it's a matter of commitment to fighting corruption. If you are committed to fighting corruption, the resources you have will do.
But then, even when the agencies are committed, they also have their limitations to be able to prosecute. But then, what do you make up with, what's your assessment of the efforts by the president himself and the government, to strengthen this anti-corruption fight? Do they really take interest in even fighting corruption in the first place?
I did say it. It's just window dressing. It's just a matter of glib talk. It's a matter of just, fulfilling righteousness. It's a matter of just say, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, but, in your heart, you're not doing it. Because if you're doing it, 3/4 of the people in the government won't be there. Yeah, because one or two, a lot of them have issues relating to corrupt practices. But they're there, sitting in a government that is pretending to fight corruption. Who is deceiving who?
Because some would say, looking at the body, what was done by the previous administration in terms of fighting corruption, it took the fight, to another level, even though it was also in the end accused of a number of, corruption-related cases and all of that. Some are still being investigated. But some would have expected perhaps some kind of definition, some kind of solid stance on anti-corruption, show that, yes, we're not going to condone this, as a country. Why is that lacking?
Because there's an incestuous relationship between corruption and governance in this country. Because corruption is the oil that makes the difference between somebody who was just riding, who was taking night bus, and then who today is having numbered accounts abroad. So, and then a situation whereby we really, as a country, have not come out to say this is what, to do a covenant with the people. This is what the government owes you, and this is what, if the government doesn't give it to you, you have right to go and take the government to court or things like that, and commit the government to do that constitutionally. These are things that are that have become sine qua non, because corruption is not just about coming to arrest you, Shafiu, and taking you to court for stealing XYZ amount of. It's about the conditions to make corruptions not to work.
That's it.
And when you address the basic social requirements, the root causes of people, you provide them with the basic, amenities that they need to survive the existence. After all, what do people do? Why do people go to great lengths to steal money? Is to be able to look after the basic things: education for their children, transportation to and fro, cheap and affordable, health, and a few other things, and food.
Yeah. So if I understand your position, it is absolutely difficult to fight corruption when you have growing number of unemployment, when you have growing list of companies collapsing as a result of policies and unfavorable policies. It is absolutely difficult to fight corruption when you fail to provide the basic needs of the citizens, and when you fail to even guarantee a minimum living wage for the workforce. So without all of this, we're just winking in the dark.
Exactly, and then the government is exacerbating it by even withdrawing some of those things that the props. It's making a nonsense. It's making a sin out of those things it's supposed to provide for the people. It's saying, I'm not going to give you subsidy, or it demonizes subsidy as a way of taking away what the government itself is supposed to provide to people. Look, provision of subsidy is not a matter of economics. It's a matter of social necessity. Right, because without it, the society breaks. It breaks, and at some point, it shatters. So you go to countries, even the countries that are lecturing us to provide, to remove subsidies, live with layers and layers and layers of subsidy. It's not because of it's benevolence of the people who run the country. It's because of a necessity. Otherwise, they will lose everything. But here, because these things have not percolated down, they have not cascaded down to the sense, to the consciousness of the people, the government takes advantage. But I bet you, in France, in Britain, in US, in all of these countries, if you tamper with any of the subsidies to guarantee people's welfare and people's social existence, you're asking for trouble. You even lose it. You even lose more. They have come a long way in their history of revolutions, of insurrections, of all kinds of things, wars, because of the greed of their previous listen. So now they realize, for us to be able to live, have a social peace, social contract, we need to have a social contract with the people.
Exactly.
So that we can at least maintain our society.
Right. Now, in our case, we're beginning to have, we're parting ways with these subsidies, and it continues, for instance, from oil, petrol subsidy to electricity subsidy and so on and so forth. But then also coming up with palliative measures, running almost a palliative economy now, even making it a matter of policy, because the what do you call them now? The National, Identity Management Commission is talking about coming up with identity cards, including one that would be accessible to, would provide access to palliatives and so on. So we're beginning to institutionalize palliatives. Is that the way to go?
It's not the way to go generally. Palliatives are provisions for temporary relief, especially when you have natural disasters like earthquake, floods, and all that. And palliatives are supposed to provide you with a temporary relief, short-term measure to be able to go over this so that you can face up to the realities of your situation. Now, and then even the way we have administered the palliatives in this country, we call it palliatives, but how many people have died trying to access palliatives that do not even get to them at the end of the day? So it's not palliatives.
And who takes responsibility for these people that died?
Are we going to run this country based on continuous palliatives? And how are we going? Are we not going to say, look, we want to give you these palliatives to take you to a certain point while we think about concrete, well-measured policies that will take care of this situation? I have not seen that. Everybody's talking about palliatives, but has it even gone down to the individual? You get people, thousands of people, gather them to distribute a few bags of rice, and in the process, people die.
Are dying.
And then you get the media and say, we're giving palliatives, and governors sit down in a very pitiful, pathetic way, and then you call that palliatives? That is pain. You are adding more pain to the people. That the more pain that you have caused to the people, you are adding more pain to them. If you want to have a concrete policy on social welfare, it is not a sin, by the way. It happens in all countries. In even the countries, as I said, that are asking us to do, they know that it is a necessity. It's not something that is benevolence or your goodwill. It is something that a necessity. Otherwise, society breaks.
That's right.
And that is what we're getting into. And that is why this government must be very careful. Otherwise, the governance space will constrict, and at the end of the day, it's going to be just between the presidency and the National Assembly. They'll just be ruling themselves there.
Oh, quite unfortunate. I don't think they will allow us to get to that level.
We hope so.
Right. Thank you very much, Govt. Iliyasu Gadu, a public affairs analyst, for talking to us on Daily Politics. We really appreciate your informed perspectives.
Thank you again. Once again, happy Salah in advance.
MashaAllah. And viewers, that's a wrap on today's edition of Daily Politics. You can do well by, following us on daily basis as we come up with this program, and on Fridays where we open our telephone lines for you to comment on national issues. Before then, I'm Shafiu Suleiman, thanking you for watching.